While we all love a good text-based SVG file, sometimes our designs need a little bit of spice, and the easiest way to do that is to add shapes and cool graphics to them. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to do just that. So to create the designs, the first thing that we need to touch on are shapes. They are literally the building blocks of all of the things. So on the left-hand side, I want you guys to find a box underneath the pen tools. It's going to look something like this here. If you right click on this, you're going to see a bunch of different options that pop up. You're going to have a rectangle, an ellipse tool, a polygon tool, a star tool, and a line tool. Using all of these, you can get a number of different really awesome things out of them. Now going over what I've already created here, let's go ahead and pop open the ellipse tool. If you hold down the shift key, you can create a very symmetrical shape regardless of what it is. All the proportions will remain consistent, but if you want to just go super oblong or whatever it is, if you just click and drag on the screen, you can create literally anything. Going up to the rectangle tool, you're going to notice that it says rectangle and not square, and that's because you can create a square from a rectangle. If you hold down that shift key, you're getting proportioned constraints that will allow you to create a square. If you let it go, you can then create the rectangle of your dreams. Now the next tool is the Polygon Tool. Now when you click on the Polygon Tool, if you just click on the screen, it's going to pop up a thing and you can decide the radius and the size of your shape. Honestly, you can do that with all of the tools. If you click OK, it'll populate one of those suckers on the screen for you. You of course can also click and hold shift to create a proportional one. You can also just click on the screen and kind of drag and drop to your heart's content. Now one thing that I want to note is you can change how many sides this Polygon tool will give you. So one thing that I want to note is when it comes to this Polygon tool, you can actually click on the screen and you can control how many sides you're going to get. You can go up, you can go down, so it's really easy to kind of adjust a lot of things. The next option that you're going to see from this menu is going to be the star tool, and as the name suggests, you're going to create a star. If you decide that you want to increase the number of points that you have, you can click it and you'll see points available. You can change the points. You can also change the radius of these things. Now this top radius here, radius 1, is going to give you results like what you normally see in a star. The point goes on top. This has to be higher in order for it to come out like this. If you're looking for an upside down star, you want to mess with radius 2 and make sure that this number is bigger than this top number. Now using the direct selection tool, this is the arrow that's filled in over on the left hand side. You can click on these shapes and you'll notice that we have our little nodes that pop up, and there's also these white circles. If you click on those circles and drag, you'll notice that your shape starts to round out a little bit. And that's true for a lot of these shapes. You can control the sharpness of the corners. So something that's really cool about rounding out the edges is you can pick and choose which ones you want. So by clicking on the shape, you'll notice that all 4 of those things highlight. If you only pick one of the nodes, you'll see that only one circle is left. By waiting until your arrow has that little like rounded edge there, you can drag and round that edge out. And as I was showing you earlier, you can do that with all of these. Again, if you only want to pick a few of them and have them rounded out, you can. There's a lot to control here. So another really easy thing that we can do is we can add additional nodes to our shapes in order to get new shapes. So for example, I took this square and I turned it into a coffin, and it's actually really easy to do. Let's pick the rectangle tool and we'll drag this thing out into a rough rectangle shape. So now that our rectangle shape is on the screen, I'm actually going to go over to the left hand side and grab the pen tool. By selecting the shape itself, I'm going to hover over the line and you'll notice that your pen tool kind of has a plus sign next to it now. If you click on that, you'll drop a couple nodes onto the line. From there, I'm going to slide back on over to the left hand side and use that direct selection tool again. With the shape selected, I'm going to click the node that I want to control, and you can either use your arrow keys and bump it over in increments. You can hold down shift and use the arrow and bump it over into larger increments. Or, of course, you can click on the node itself and drag it over. If you choose to be a rebel and freehand drag it over, but your freehand kind of went a little weird, you can clean this up really easily. By selecting both of the nodes that you're wanting to line up, you can go over to the right hand side, find this align feature, and actually do vertical align center, and that will pop everything up on one solid line area. I'm going to do that for all of these bases so that everything is on the same playing field. Now I do know that coffins kind of go up in a point and down in a point, so I do want to move this over just a little bit. And for this bottom one, I'm going to hold down shift and really bring this sucker in. Now I'm going to select both of these nodes here, and using that align tool, I'm going to do a horizontal align center, and that will make sure everything is straight there. And with those two things still selected, I'm just going to bring it in just a little bit. Repeat the process on the other side, and we've created a coffin. So now that we got a basic rundown of all of the shapes that we can play with, let me tell you about layers and groups. So layers, as it suggests, it's on multiple layers, and groups, as it suggests, it's in a group. Think of this just like you would inside of Cricut Design Space. You have multiple layers here, and these items move around freely. But if you group them together, it's like putting them in a Ziploc bag. If you move it, everything is moving. So I'm going to show you what that looks like in the layers panel, right? So this is layer 3 and 5. This one here is layer 7. As you can see, inside of layer 7, we have the group itself, and we have the rectangle tool and the ellipse tool, and then we have on layer 5 just the rectangle, and on layer 3 just the ellipse tool. And just like inside of Cricut Design Space, they have a way. And just like inside of Cricut Design Space, Illustrator has its own way to kind of combine everything together and give you different shapes. What you want to do is find the Pathfinder tool. Now for me, when I select on my shapes, my Pathfinder tool is already available. But if yours isn't, what you need to do is go up to Windows and then drop on down to Pathfinder, or hit Control, Shift, and F9. So with the Pathfinder tool pulled up, we have a circle here and a rectangle. So we're going to use these two shapes, and I'm going to show you what all of these different modes are. So this first mode here is going to combine the shapes together. It's going to give you one continuous thing, no matter the color, no matter the layer. If you select it, it will group together and it will flatten it. This second one here, it's going to take the top shape and it's going to cut it out of the back shape. Just like that. Now this third option here, it's going to cut everything and only leave you with what was overlapping. With the way that these two shapes were set up, we kind of were left with this little slice of pizza. If we were to move this and make it a little bit smaller inside, and we use that same thing, it's going to leave us with just the square, because that's where the two shapes were overlapping. Same way like this, we're left with what was overlapping. This last one here, it's going to take out only what was overlapping. Illustrator's done pretty good at kind of visually showing you exactly what you're going to get. So there are a few other things inside of this Pathfinder tool, and some of them kind of go along with what we just did, and other ones are kind of weird and probably won't be using them to create SVGs. So under the Pathfinder section, this first option here where it has like the two boxes that overlapped each other, what this option is going to do, it's going to divide everything. So you're going to end up with like 3 different pieces, or however many shapes you end up, wherever they are overlapping, it's going to cut it out. Think of this as the slice feature inside of Cricut Design Space. The biggest difference between this and the slice inside of Cricut Design Space is inside of Cricut Design Space, wherever it overlapped, you ended up with 2 of those shapes. inside of Illustrator, you don't end up with two. It takes out the background shape and you're just left with one of the overlapping pieces. So using the circle and the square once more and dividing them, we end up with a Pac-Man piece, this little pizza slice, and this funky shape here. Now this one here, where the two boxes are overlapping, this one is your trim feature. This is kind of like divide, except for you don't end up with the funky weird middle piece thing. So taking your circle and your square and using that trim feature, what you end up with is the Pac-Man and the box up here. Now the ones that you guys probably aren't going to be using for the SVGs are these last four here. So this first one here, right, when you hover over it in the panel, it says that it's a merge. So just clicking on merge, it's actually just kind of gonna give you the results of the trim feature. You'll have the box and the Pac-Man circle thing, but if you were to do a merge on the same color, it will literally merge it together. So it does merge, but it doesn't always merge in the way that you think you would. This next one here, it's going to give you... So this next one here, if we were to take the circle and the square and kind of do the whole shebang where we select the button and we do crop, what it's going to do is it's going to take out that background shape. It's going to leave you with that center overlapping section, but then it's also going to give you an empty box, which with SVGs, you don't really want empty boxes. As you can see here, we have the actual shape itself and then this random empty box. And if you were to import this inside of Cricut Design Space, you're going to end up with a shape that is going to get cut out. So I don't see any use at all for this when it comes to SVGs. So this next one here is actually called outline, and it literally gives you an outline. And personally, I can't figure out why you would want this inside of an SVG. It doesn't really serve a purpose. In my opinion, for creating SVGs, I'm sure that there is an excellent reason that they included this, but for creating SVGs, you just don't need it. So this last one here is called the minus back, and with the circle and a square, you'll end up with something like this. It's gonna take everything that is behind it and completely erase it. It's also gonna do like a reverse trim and take out where you guys overlap the two shapes, and you're just left with that. So now that you know how to use the shape feature, you can add nodes to the shapes in order to create special things. You can round out edges to create different variations of the same shapes. You know the difference between the layering and the group. You know how to use the Pathfinder tool to merge, slice out, minus, subtract, do your dividing like your slice tool inside of Cricut Design Space, and you can also do the trim feature. What you can do with all of this information now is start creating different shapes. So much about what you love with SVGs are the designs that also come with them. Now, a lot of the designs can be used using basic, so a lot of the designs can be created by using basic shape. For example, using a circle, you can create a cloud. A box and a star shape can get you a house. Two circles and a little bit of messing around with some nodes can get you a heart. Using the star tool and the line tool can get you a cool looking star. Now, one thing that I do want to note is if you do end up using the line tool for anything at all, what you want to do is make sure that you expand the lines. Inside of Cricut Design Space, when I've used the line tool before and didn't expand the lines, what it ended up doing is creating like a drawled line. And you don't necessarily want that, especially if you're adding stroke and everything else to it. In order to do that, you select your lines, go up to Object, go down to Path, and do Outline Stroke. That is going to take it from being a line to an actual outline. As you can see here, the Cricut will cut along this outer ring. Just like we did inside of the text features, we want to make sure that all of our lines are expanded so that the Cricut doesn't mess anything up. So looking at subtracting shapes, what you can do is take two circles and create a moon. Now either one of these options will give you similar results, but there is a slight difference. So using this first one here, the minus front, if you were to select both of these and click on that, it's going to take whatever is in front and take it out of the picture. It's going to leave you with just the moon itself. Now if you were to select both of these circles, drop down to the trim feature and hit that button, what it's going to do is it's going to take out anything that's behind that top layer. Doing this will allow you to ungroup it and start creating like a whole lunar eclipse thing by taking out a little bit of each moon as you go along. Now using those same two tools, we can take the moon and take the stars and overlap them and create something like this. So using the minus feature again, if we select everything here and we tap it, it's gonna remove those stars from the moon and we're only left with the moon. Using the trim feature, we'll get similar results, but the biggest thing to take away is we'll still be able to use those stars inside a Cricut Design Space without having to go through the whole contour feature. So we touched on this in our previous section where we went over everything about text, because let's be honest, text is literally just one gigantic shape once you get down to the nitty-gritty of it. We can take this font, which is in a Jealous medium. I will link this down below. It's a font by Nicole Andrews. We take this, copy it. We're going to put a huge stroke around it in order to knock this out of the shape itself. We're going to go up to stroke. We're going to add our stroke width that we need. And we're going to right click this, go to create an outline. That's going to take our text and it's going to turn it into one gigantic outline. We're going to go up to object, path, outline stroke, and that's going to outline our stroke so that everything is one shape. We're going to use that Pathfinder tool, go over to merge or unite, and it's going to make one gigantic shape out of everything. From here, we're going to select both of them, align them in the center so it's even. So we're going to select the apple itself and the text. We're going to use that minus front feature, which is going to take out the text completely. And now we're just left with the apple pieces and our original text. We're going to bring our text down and it's going to fit nicely inside of there. Create outlines, merge this entire thing so that this is a shape, and you've literally just cut text out of a shape. And you can do this with a number of different things. So another really cool thing that you can do with the Pathfinder features is actually use some of the SVGs that you already have in your arsenal and create something new with them. For example, I have this really pretty pocket floral design, and I took out the flowers, added them to the moon that we created earlier and some stars, and created something totally different. Achieving results like this is actually really easy with a square and using the minus Pathfinder. By using the shapes on the left hand side, dragging out a rectangle, and covering the entire pocket itself, we're going to select both of these items and use the minus front. It's going to eliminate the pocket and we're left with just our flower. From here we can move our flowers around and weld them to a moon and create something totally different. When you upload these inside a Cricut Design Space, if you were to leave this totally ungrouped, there is a chance that Cricut Design Space isn't necessarily going to read it the way that it's supposed to. I've personally imported files that I didn't group or didn't combine together, and the placement of them ended up really wonky. So to help prevent that for you in the future, because we know that with updates can come bugs, we want to group or path combine them. Now there is a difference between grouping and combining your path. Grouping is going to treat this like a Ziploc baggie. You're going to be able to move everything around and you can still dive in deeper and move these individual pieces. Taking a look at the layers panel on the right, you can see that all of our purple is together in one Ziploc bag, and all of our blue pieces are together in their own Ziploc bag. They're still individual shapes, they're just all combined into one group. Path Combine, on the other hand, has made it to where the colors themselves are one gigantic shape, despite having space in between each of the individual pieces. So we're inside of Cricut Design Space, and I uploaded a group and a Path Combined SVG file just to show you an example. So the grouped version, as you can see, we still have each individual piece laid out for us. And for the Path Combined, well, when you drag it, it's all one solid shape. Now the biggest reason to do something like this is for the ease of cut. If we went right now to make it, you can see that the Path Combined version basically welded the entire design, whereas the group kinda is trying to save as much vinyl as possible. Again, another evidence of that here. So there's some major benefits of path combining everything inside of Illustrator, and there's also some big benefits of just grouping similar colors together. Think of path combining as your welded SVG inside a Cricut design space. It's going to make for no thinking cuts, whereas grouping similar pieces together is going to allow the end user a little bit more control, but they will have to do some adjustments beforehand. Crafters, that's the basics of using the Shapes tool to create the amazing things that you see with the text-based designs. I hope that you guys continue to build on the skills that I'm teaching you. Just a few friendly reminders: weld your script fonts. Always save the original files. Make sure that you are grouping similar colors together or combine the paths so that it is easier for Cricut users. Reduce the amount of nodes by right-clicking and simplifying. And in the next video here, we're going to go over the pen tool and the paintbrush tool and show you how you can take logos, turn them into vector images, and also use the paintbrush tool to create silhouettes like shown here.